on the top of the page, Chavdalet Amid Beis, Medras. Okay, so now this sheet has been contaminated by a Zav with Tumas Medras. Ve'aso Vilon. It's an amazing halacha that you can actually remove Tuma from an object if you change its purpose. And now what he does is he designated this sheet as a vilon. A vilon he translates as a curtain. That's how we use it even in modern Hebrew today. Tar min medjus, it is no longer medjus. Medjus means a sheet that you sit on or that you lie on, because now it stands vertically as a curtain. So it changed its purpose and it changes its status as tummy. It's now tar. Avol tome maga midrus. Meaning, there are two issues of tumah here. There's one issue of medrus, and then there's an issue of coming in contact with something which is tumah b'medrus. So that curtain, as far as tumas medrus is concerned, loses, it sheds its status as tumas medrus because now it's a curtain and it's no longer used for medrus. But it still is tummy because of its contact with the zav. Right? This is the top sheet. Let's say there may be many sheets like Princess and the Pea, but it doesn't matter because the zav came in direct contact with that sheet. So in addition to that sheet acquiring tuma of medrus, it also acquires tumas maga. Now tumas maga is not removed by virtue of the fact that he designates it as a curtain. That designation as a curtain is only meaningful as far as tumas medrus is concerned. Omar Rabbi Yossi, be'eze medrus nogazeh. What are you talking about? You're saying that the sheet came in contact with tumas medrus. Elim nogavo hazav tome maga hazav. Now let's understand. There could be many, many curtains or many mattresses, and the zav climbs on the top mattress, and all the mattresses below him, all the way down to the ground, contract tumas medrus. So therefore, says Rabbi Yossi, that sheet which did not come in direct contact with the zav because it was one of the bottom sheets, not the top sheet, so therefore it doesn't have tumas maga of medrus, and therefore it only has tumas medrus. And now that he designated it as a curtain, it loses its status as tumas medrus. So now Abaye wants to analyze Rabbi Yossi. Mi ki naga bo azav mi atame. If it would have been the top sheet that came in direct contact with the body of the zav, then Rabbi Yossi would agree it's tamei. Vafilu lebesof, even though later on he redesignates it for a curtain. Amai lema savale tuma. Why don't we say the following according to you, Rava, that since that curtain has already received the tuma chamura, the heavy duty tuma of medrus, it doesn't have room to be metame betumas maga. But anyway, but keep in mind, I will say, the tumas maga is simultaneous with the tumas medrus. Amalei, that's exactly how Rava defends himself and rejects by umimayda haishim nogabo azavla bosa medrus. How do you know we're talking about a case that the maga between the zav and the sheet took place subsequent to the medrus, meaning the tuma chamura of medrus was already chal? Dilma, perhaps Makami Medrus. Maybe before it became a Medrus, it already came in contact with the Zav. And therefore, Havi Tumach Mural Tumakala. It in stage one, time T1, it contracted Tumakala of Magazav, and now when the Zav climbs up and sleeps on it and generates the Tumas Medrash, which is the Tumah Chamura, the Tumah Chamura is Chal on the Tumah Kala. Aval Hocha. But what about the case of a half a mincha, the idi ve'idi Tumah Kala? So now the first Tumah and the second Tumah are both called Tumah Kala, right? Because what are we saying now? We're saying now that the half of the mincha became Tomei, right? And then afterwards it was touched by a Tful Yom. Just 1 second. Okay, so Rashi has a whole piece over here. So again, there are a lot of details here, but just to get the bottom line, what happens is that the whole issue of Balale Tuma, I'm sorry, not Balale, what does he call it? I just want to get Savale Tuma, sorry, Savale Tuma, only applies when there was an initial stage in which there was a Tuma Chamura. But if now we're talking about two tumos that are both on the same level, they're both tumakala, then there's no possibility of applying savale tuma. Savale tuma means it already absorbed a tuma chamura. I just don't understand what Rashi is saying here. I'm missing. I'm sorry. I'm missing one little piece of the puzzle. It's my mistake, but bothers me. I'm just going to try for one more minute. If not, I think we're doing okay. Um, Okay, again, I'm just going to tell you on a very, how should I say, it's just a temporary possibility. We don't have time to go into this, but I think what's happening is that a mincha has the status of ochlin. And with regard to ochlin, no matter what happens, whether the ochel came in contact with tamei mes or it came in contact with a tful yom that touched it, in all cases, ochlin have the same status of tuma. So that's what the Gemara means when it says here, "Id de id tuma kal." Anyway, Elami Sefer. Now Abai issues another objection to Rava from the Sefer. Moder Rab Yossi b'shnei sdinim hamakupolim umunachim zeh al zeh. Right? Rabbi Yossi agrees that if you have two folded sheets lying one on top of the other, the Yoshav Zav Alehem, right? And now the Zav comes along and sits on the top sheet with another sheet underneath it. Sha'elyon Tame Medris, Vatachton Tame Medris Umaga. Vamai Lema Savale Tuma. So the top sheet contracted Tumas Midris, and the bottom sheet has also Maga, right? Because there are two sheets. So the first sheet is Tame Tumas, what's it called? Tumas Medris. The second sheet below it is also Tame Tumas Medris, because as we said, like the Princess and the Pea. It goes all the way from the top where the Zav is sitting, all the way to the bottom of the ground. But now the second sheet came in contact with the top sheet, and yet Rabbi Yossi agrees in this case that the second sheet, insofar as it came in contact with the top sheet, is now, in addition to being Tomei Tumas Medrash, which it already had, now gets an additional Tuma of Tumas Maga. Yeah, but again, Rabbi Yossi, keep in mind that the Tumas Maga is simultaneous with the Tumas Medrash. It's not like Vazecher Zen, time T1, time T2. And Rava says, Hosam v'vasachas. Yeah, you're right. When is Rabbi Yossi Moda? That's because both Tumas Maga, and Tumas Medrash emerged and were chal at the same time. But here you had the first half of an Isaron that came in contact with, let's say, a Tomei Mes, and then it came in contact subsequently when it was in the Kli with a tumas with a tful yom. Omar Rav Isaron shecholko v'ovad echemihem v'hifish acher tachtov. This is like a very typical scenario in Kodshim, right? So he lost half of the Isaron, replaced it, and then he found the original half that was lost. Nimtza Rishon. Hare shloshta munachim v'beis, and all three halves are in the same vessel, the same bowl, mixing bowl. Oh. So now Rava goes through all the different possible scenarios. Scenario number one, Nitma Avud. If, let's say, the one that got lost contracted Tuma, is Avud v'rishon mitztarfin, but Mufresh ein mitztarfin. So keep in mind that the Avud is the original half of Isara, which was meant to be in the Kli together with the Rishon, what's called. But the Mufresh, the one that was designated as a substitute, was really never meant to be in this Kli. It was only there because right now we couldn't find the Avud. Now that we find the Avud, and the Avud contracted Tumah, it connects to the Rishon, and it's Matami the Rishon. But the Mufresh, the one that was the replacement one, doesn't really have a place. Okay, now we go to the second scenario. Nitma Mufresh, the one that was designated as a replacement, contracted Tumah. Mufresh v'rishon mitztarfin. Well, I'm not sure what I just said. Whatever I just said, forget it. Let's start again. Nitma Mufresh. Right? Mufresh means the one that was meant to be in the Kli, just one second, sorry. Mufresh. Nitma Mufresh. What is Mufresh? Right. Mufresh means it was originally Mufresh. It was originally designated to be part of the Mincha. Avud means the one that was meant to replace it. Is Nitma Mufresh. Is Mufresh v'rishon mitztarfin, Avud ein mitztarfin. So what happens now? The Mufresh became Tomei. Right, the Mufresh became Tomei. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I made a mistake here. Mufresh is the one that was meant to replace. So now the Mufresh, which is the substitute one, contracted Tumah, is then Mufresh v'rishon mitztarfin. Why? Because in the meantime, the other half that was meant to be part of the mincha in the original plan was lost. Is Avud ein mitztarfin. Nitma Rishon Shneim mitztarfin. As far as the relationship to the Rishon is concerned, we have a dual relationship. On the one hand, it's related to the original half, and on the other hand, it's also related to the substitute, the mufrash. And it's related to the avud because in the original plan it was supposed to be in the same kli with the same mincha. And now Abai disagrees. Abai Omar afilu nitma echad mehem nami shneim mitztarfin. Meaning it doesn't matter which one contracted tuma, the other two are already always considered combined, and they will be tummy. My timer, kulu b'nei bikta da dadinu. They all have the same address. What does it mean? They all belong to the same mincha, just that one was a substitute and the other was the original, but it doesn't matter. They all belong to the same mincha. Rava says, v'chein linyan kmitza. Let's apply these three laws to a case of kmitza. Kamatz mina avud. If he did kmitza on the one that was originally part of the mincha, but it got lost, is shirav v'rishon necholim. So since he did kmitza on that mincha that was lost, and now he found it, it could be matir the shirayim of that mincha, and it could be matir the shirayim of the rishon. Right? Just like we said before, is nitma avud v'rishon mitztarfin. Meaning the mufrash eino nechal. There's no heta on the shirayim of the mufrash because the mufrash was the substitute kmitza, and now we did kmitza on the original, which is called the ovud. Kamatz mina mufrash. Now we did kmitza on the original half that got lost, and he found the half. Shirayev, it's matter its own shirayim, v'rishon, because it was designated to be with the rishon. Again, Abai is going to disagree, but avud eino nechal, because the one that was avud, was already replaced by the mufrash. Kamatz min rishon shneim eino nechalim. So the rishon cannot be matter the shirayim of either of the other two. It can't be mafresh the one that was originally designated but was lost, because since it was lost, it's no longer part of the action. And it can't be matir the substitute one because they found the original. Abaye Omar afilu komatz me'echad mehem shneim enam necholim. It doesn't matter which one he did kmitza on, it cannot be matir the shirayim of the other two. My timer kulu nami b'nei bikto da'adodinin. Right, all of them belong to the same address. In other words, one is lost, and therefore this hafrasha could not be mater itshirayim. The other one was just a substitute, not the original. So only the one that had the hafrasha is mater its own shirayim. Maskef lo Rav Papa. Rav Papa doesn't like Abayi's conclusion that you can't eat from any of the shirayim of the other two except for the one that had kmitza. V'shirayim didei mio necholim ha'ika danko dekometz v'lo korev. So we're going to try to, I'm not sure what time it is. It's already time to stop. So maybe we'll just finish this up. There are some arithmetic calculations here. Each of the three halves needs kmitza, and the kmitza relates to all three of them. Even if the half that does not actually belong to the mincha, it still relates to it. Consequently, the third of the komets that corresponds to the extra half is invalid. This disqualifies the entire komets and prevents it from rendering any of the remnants fit for consumption. Now, why is it called a danka? Danka is a sixth. The Gemara calls this third a sixth because if it's divided between the minchas, meaning the two valid halves of an isaron, then each will receive one sixth. So that's why he calls it a sixth. So basically, what's the bottom line of Rav Papa? Right, this is Rav Papa, correct? Yeah. So what's the bottom line of the I don't understand. Okay, we'll stop here because we're under the gun here, but I want to go over this Rav Papa because unless you guys can explain Rav Papa, because Rav Papa seems to be saying that none of the Kmitza will not be effective for any of the others. But that's exactly what Abai said. Ah, I understand. Oh, Abai said that the Kmitza is meaningful to be mati the shiraim of that kometz, meaning of that mincha. And Rav Papa is saying no, because since all three halves are related to each other, each in its own way, therefore the Kmitza is divided up into one third, meaning the Kmitza is no longer what's the word I want to use? Exclusive to that particular mincha. The kmitza is now spread out, so to speak, and relates to all three menachos. And we said before, that was the drasha that we had, that the kmitza has to relate exclusively to that mincha. So it seems to me, I'll double check this, that Rav Papa's objection to Abaye is why does Abaye allow the shirayim of that particular mincha, which had the kmitza, to be eaten? None of the shirayim of any of the three menachos, even on the one that had the hafrasha, that had the kmitza, would none of them would be allowed to be eaten. Okay, then. So we'll stop here, and in Mitzvah Hashem we'll go over that point of Rav Papa Bli Neder tomorrow.